Hey everybody, it's Robert Ohotto. What's going on? So this is Your Intuitive Edge, episode 5. 5 episodes, baby. And tonight it's all about going back into history or herstory or whatever. We're talking about your past. So I want to ask you some questions here. Are you tired of being stuck in your past, in the same patterns, most notably of your family? You tired of that? How about, let's check this out. What about the past that just seems to keep dragging you back when it comes to your own self-sabotage? Why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep replicating stuff that you know you've thought you were done with? What is this painful loop that you got going on? Where's that from? What's driving that? Well, tonight we're going to center everything around, to answer those questions, by the way, and more. It's all about your past. We're looking at the holographic nature of your past. I am going to talk about family patterns, and everything is going to center around this key intuitive question. It really is an intuitive question. It's going to recruit your intuitive system. It's going to activate things in you. And what I want this question to do, as I get ready to say it, you already read the title, probably you know what the question is, but I really want to give context to this because this question, what does the past ask of the present? What does the past ask of the present? It's absolutely massive. It is such an intuitively activating question. I don't think you have any idea. And I'm going to guide you into this as an intuitive instruction, as a way to ping your own system, because you have a ton of past alive and well in you. You always will. And it's not right, wrong, good, or bad. It's just what's true about being human and being born into the momentum of history and its march forward. All of us were born into time. We were born on this planet into time. And time is not a static thing. It is an active, moving phenomenon. But get an image of this. Get an image of the earth itself being a place, a matrix of many, many different patterns. All of those patterns were active and alive before you were born, including all the patterns of your family. So your soul makes what I call a soul contract, sacred agreement. Carolyn Mace calls this a sacred contract. Same hood, same idea, but your soul chose. And I think on some level, we all feel this, right? We all feel like, something in me agreed to this life. Something in me agreed to a blueprint, a design, a destiny in this life. It's absolutely true. It's what I read all the time in people in readings. So I'm reading all of you tonight that I take for readings. Yes, we're doing live readings tonight. So that said, get a sense. Once again, these shows really, my intention with these shows, once again, is to help you intuitively read yourself. There's only one of me, and I've more or less retired from doing this. For the most part, still once in a while, I'll kick it up and probably open up sessions on my site, but I'm a busy guy teaching now. And I want to thus share with you how to read yourself. We are going to read your past. We're going to read what your past is asking of your present moment. Now, back to this image. You were born into this patterned momentum, this karma. And just for now, let's not go anywhere with this where we're making it about punishment and burning off karma from past lifetimes, blah, blah, blah. Stop it. Stop it. Because I could show you soul contract reading to soul contract reading how inaccurate that may be. That may be true for some people, but for some people, they have what I call the bodhisattva contract, and they've incarnated into a family system into a pattern, into a momentum, into a pain, a trauma that has yet to be resolved because their soul was strong enough to heal that. And it has absolutely nothing to do with a past life or with bad karma from some other time on the planet. Nothing at all. It has to do with that soul had enough power and juju to step into a pattern and do some new feng shui. So I want you to come to this show blank, without your preconceived ideas of what you think's happening or what your past is really about, or wipe it out. Now, some of that may still apply by the time we get done. But to get a clear read on yourself, you always have to start with a blank canvas. You've got to go to neutrality. You've got to get beyond what drives perception in you, which most of the time is shame. So we're just get an image. We're wiping that out, and we're welcoming, as I guide you tonight, clarity. We are welcoming truth. We are welcoming spiritual instruction. We are welcoming intuitive insight. We're welcoming a clear read on you and what your options are now in context to your history. That's what it's all about, baby. So I want to tell you what inspired this show. In 2015, I saw this movie that is based on a true story. It was a fantastic film, and I really, really highly recommend that if you get a chance, you do check this film out. It was called The Woman in Gold. And this woman is a true story about Maria Altman, which was this Jewish woman that fled Austria at the time, and 60 years later finds herself trying to retrieve her family possessions. So she leaves Austria when it's under Nazi rule, and decides after she's living in California, after 60 years, that she wants to go back and get the stuff that the Nazis stole from her family, amongst which was this incredible painting of her Aunt Adele, and it was called The Woman in Gold. So I'm going to sort of do a synopsis of this because I want to keep on focus with what the show topic is tonight, but I want to lay this down as my inspiration because this is the intuitive metric with which we're reading your history tonight. There was a moment in the movie where her lawyer, in real life, Randy Schoberg, played by Ryan Reynolds, if you're interested, says in the court of Vienna, he says, this is a moment where we get an opportunity here to ask what the past asks of the present. They had to fight with Austria to get this painting back. Austria was not going to give it back to her. And this lawyer, Schoberg, got it back. But that moment when he said to the court, we need to ask what the past asks of the present, went right through me. Because I thought to myself, what's my woman in gold? What's the thing that was maybe taken from me somehow? Or what is it from my history, your history, that asks something of the now? So in her case, what that lawyer was saying, what Schoberg was saying was, look, given the fact that Nazis killed her family, almost all of them, and took everything, what do you think that past is asking of you, the Austrian government, now to do to make this right? Now, that's why this question, what does the past ask of the present, I find to be rivetingly powerful. Because when you approach it from that place of, what's my woman in gold moment? What's my moment where this thing in my life, the thing in the now, is painful, it's challenging, it's sabotaging perhaps. And I'm going to point you back to your history, and I'm going to point you to the holographic nature of your past, which I'm going to walk through shortly. And I'm going to say to you, what do you think your ancestors are asking of you right now? What do you think your cultural history demands of the now in your life? What do you think that of, for example, the women that fought for the right to vote, or fought for equal pay, or fought for equal rights, asks of all, what does that past ask of all women today? Now, you can extrapolate from these examples anything you want for your own life. But what I'm after is the thing that is right here, front and center in the now, that is saying to you, your past is asking you to do something different in the now. Your past is asking for a different shift, a different pivot, a different activation of power in you, a different accountability, a different responsibility, a different compassion, a different forgiveness. What in your life has that, is the past saying, look, I need you right now to do what your ancestors couldn't, or to honor their attempts at trying to change a pattern. I need you right now to finally stop lying to yourself, to finally take responsibility for your karma, the consequences you generate now, because you are woke. So this is where we're entering into tonight's show. We're going into the space where we're going to walk through your history holographically. And then I'm going to show you what that history is asking of the now. I'm going to ask you to go into yourself and get down with this question. It's going to crack you open, and it's going to hold you to account. So this isn't about looking back to the past per se and placing blame. It's about being clear on the past as a karmic technician, but also treating the past as a voice of instruction. So imagine, right now, as we struggle with the climate changes of this planet, what the next generation is going to look back and say to us, and what those of us fighting for awareness in this area of the fact that the climate is changing, period. And we have something to do with it, period. What is our past oil use? And we're all guilty here. I'm in the pot too. This is just an example of many. But what is the past ask of the now? And why aren't we? This is the key. Why don't you listen? So as much as we can say, oh, I really want my life to change. I'm tired of living out the patterns of my family. I'm tired of living out that history. You've got to follow that up with accountability. You may be very tired of it. I have no doubt. But something new comes from something new. So are you willing to actually do anything different? Because if you're not, one thing's for sure, you're just going to stay in the same pattern. There's no magic law of attraction formula. There's none of that self-help crap that's going to ever get you out of the real gritty work of wrangling in your patterns, hugging your dragons, going into the dark night of becoming nobody because you've made those patterns identity, and then saying, okay, I've got to be someone I don't know. I have got to forge a different, nourishing relationship with the unknown of my life, with the unknown of my power, with the unknown of my own soul. So, looking back has enormous, enormous value. And I'm not a fan of this whole coaching around disassociation from our history, where we just somehow decide one day we're not our past. Let me tell you how much of the past you actually are. Let me just read that out for you. Let's start right now. Let's look at what makes up your past. What makes up your present from your past. So, and let me just say something about this before we dive into that. There is a difference between disassociation from history and differentiation from history. Disassociation is to act as if that never happened or never had impact or influence on the moment, all of which is bullshit. Differentiation actually says, you know what, that actually very much formed me, formed my esteem system, formed my values, formed my confidence or lack thereof, formed my self-concept, had a lot to do with that, all that history, absolutely. And now that I'm owning and claiming and feeling through whatever I need to in that regard, whether that's the pain of the past, whether that's the trauma of the past, the loss, the grief that perhaps my ancestors never even felt through. And it's built up in the lineage and landed in my system. Oh, yes, that's what happens. Let me claim it. Let me feel through it. Let me hug the dragons and then do something different. Let's differentiate from that into something new. Disassociation is not your friend when dealing with the past. And any formulas or self-help books or all that crap that tell you you're not your past, I would look alive because you so much are your past. Let's claim it first. You can never, ever change something you don't acknowledge. How could you? How could you ever change a history you don't even own? So let me hold you to the fire a little more here. I do not want you jumping into this past life or this whatever fantasy thing you got going on. Past lives are real. But in my experience, their influence on, and this is just my experience through readings, their influence on what makes you you is far more negligible than most of us in the self-help spirituality community have ever been apprised of. Now, that'll vary person to person, but I've seen a lot of people use that past life formula to not even deal with the now. And let me give you a tip on that. What's also true about your history is that you have psychic DNA. You have psychic DNA coded in your system. This has been handed down as an evolutionary mandate from your ancestral lineage and from all of humanity, for that matter. In the same way we pass down physical genetic codes and receive them from previous generations and pass them on to other generations, we have the same phenomena when it comes to psychic DNA going on. And sometimes actually what happens is that the psychic DNA, if not integrated, if not healed into some kind of neutrality and felt through, it can become physical DNA. So from a reading I did once on a man who had literal heart disease in his family line, generation to generation, that passed down on the male side of his line because no one on the male side of the line ever felt what their heart was telling them, because culture wouldn't let them, society wouldn't let them. That's not what men do. Big boys do not cry. And the price for that false narrative, false meaning it is contra the nature of the human psyche and system. We do cry as big boys, in fact. We need to. That violation of holism turned into heart disease. And generation to generation in his line, the men got the heart attacks younger and younger. And by the time my client came to me, he was 45 with his first heart attack. His father was 55, grandfather 65. Those two died. And he pivoted out. So this is where we start to jump into the holographic nature of everything. But coming back to my point between past lives and all that, you have cellular memory in your own cells. Half the past life regressions, I think, are actually you reliving cellular memory. It's nothing to do with another lifetime. It's ancestral lineage, psychic DNA that's starting to talk through imagery to you. How do you know the difference? Did you ever consider that that might even be possible? That it may not be a past life, it's a cellular memory. And here's my point to hold you to the fire of the moment. Your greatest power is forever in present time. So jumping into past lives or memories of your cells or whatever is useful in terms of getting information of what's forming the now. But I do not want you, because it's just not helpful most of the time, to go hop into these narratives and take both feet out of the moment. If you're going to go fishing around in that way, which has its use, know its use, know its limits, keep one foot always here. Do not spin up into Fantasyville where you cannot get traction in this life. All right. That's my Judge Judy segment. Now let's step into the holographic nature of your past, because this is where we're going to start to do the reading on you. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. What past is active in your system? What of your past? Let's just say let's treat the past as its own archetype. What of that is actually active in your own system? So when I ask this question, what I'm after here is, your personal past, right? Surely you've got a pretty good read on that and a pretty good inventory of where you've been in this life from the time that you can remember, probably as a child, to now. That's absolutely part of this holographic read. But let's now step back a little bit further into your familial past. What's the history of your family? Now, this is where it gets really holographic and crazy. You got to go to both lines, father and mother. And if you're in a let's say, parenting dynamic where you had two dads or two moms, or I don't know, many dads and moms, all of that starts to become part of the soup. So some of you asked a really great question. I love this question, actually, about whether you're adopted and whether or not, if you had a different parent and how would that all work? The way it works in my experience is that, and also there's a question about being twins, which is awesome. And I'll get to that in a minute. But for now, what I want to say, the way that works in my experience is that your history, when it comes to the sort of familial lineage and sort of psychic level of your past, is compounded by all the people in your psychic field of experience and formation. So if you were adopted, you have both the blood lineage and cellular lineage of the family, biological family, and the psychic matrix field and lineage of the adopted family. You have both. Now, before you make yourself crazy trying to thread through all of what that means for you, I want you to stay in the moment and trust that whatever you do need to know, if you get present with your struggles, your issues, your patterns, you'll get guided right to the most important main veins that this lifetime you've signed up to work with. We don't sign up to work with every element of our history or the history we inherit in this lifetime. We sign up per our soul agreements to work with oftentimes selected pieces. It's another thing to really take in for a minute. And that's why, if you're trying to do a massive inventory, you'll never get to all the threads. I mean, I talked about this last episode, right? About ancestral psychic DNA. I'm going to start my own company that's going to, do psychic DNA testing and reads on people. But that would be insane to fathom all the different things that make you you. And, there's something called epigenetics where we look, it's very similar. I'm going to call it soul epigenetics, through your soul contracts. In epigenetics, the idea is that your genes turn on and off based on environmental stimuli, based on the stressors and challenges of your environment. I'm going to go and bring this into the soul contract arena and also say that, let's say your destiny epigenetics, the things you signed up to alchemize, to shift, to integrate, to heal, to learn, to grow through, they turn on just like your genes based on the same factors, but that is guided by your soul agreements. Take that in a minute. It's a big thing I just said. What I'm trying to do within the holographic territory of your past, on one hand, is to make you aware of how big it is, and simultaneously and paradoxically, focus you in. To say, listen, do you really want to know what you have signed up to work out? What you've signed up to grow through, what you've signed up to use to propel your destiny, to propel the muscles you need to build to pull off your purpose this lifetime. Well, you don't need to go through every single psychic DNA factor because the activated ones are already here. They're right here. You want to deal with that? Because you want to deal with that, what's in the room? That's the best place to start. And you can trust that if there's something else you got to get into and alchemize and hug and love and shift, you'll be guided to it, y'all. You'll be guided. You don't have to be so perfectionist and hypervigilant when it comes to the holographic nature of your history and your past. Ease up. Get in the now with me. Get in the now with yourself. And we'll start there. And we're going to start with, what does the past ask of right now? So you've got your familial past, but then you've got social past. We live in societies. We live in group dynamics with its own history. And that'll vary country to country, state to state, township to township. Once again, let's come back to that question. What does the past ask of the present? And what is the metric of that question? The metric of that question is a mystical truth. So if I say, what does the past ask of the present? Well, what are we measuring that by? We can start with your own personal sense of, well, I feel like shit. That's what we're measuring it by. I'm in a pattern that sucks. That's what we're measuring it by. Spot on. Great. But let's thread this more mystically too, because that's more in the psycho-spiritual realm of psychology. And if I were to take you to the higher altitudes of the glue that keeps that question together, what does the past ask of the present? We'd end up with the metric of all is one. So when they in Austria had to adjudicate whether they would give this painting back to the person who should have really had it, they had to ask themselves, do we dishonor the mystical truth all is one by keeping this painting? And they would have, because it wasn't theirs to keep. Or do we honor what her family went through, what she went through, fleeing for her life, and give this back to her? And that's what they decided. Because that question, what does the past ask of the present, would have haunted them. And they would have known somewhere in their soul, as you know in your own soul, that they either pivot into the core territory of the mystical heart, or they deny it. And if you cut yourself off from that, you're going to cut yourself off from a lot of power, a lot of resources, a lot of grace. Not as a punishment, but because you are not in alignment anymore to that power, to that grace. This is where you start to hold yourself to account. So on one hand, you're going to look to the dark things that you experience that are born out of your history. And we're going to honor those, and we're going to hug those in, and we're going to name them, and we're going to cry about them, and we're going to feel everything we need to feel about them. But eventually that will exhaust itself. And you'll be left with the mystical territory of, okay, now what? What next? And that is what I said earlier. That is the unknown of you. That is the unknown of your potential. That is power you've yet to let flow through you. It's never been present in your whole family line, your whole social fabric. Now, this goes out bigger, because then after society, we end up in the bigger container of culture and cultural history. You know, I'm an American. I was born here in the United States. I have German and Scandinavian ancestry. But I've often wondered what the past asks of the present for all of us as Americans in regards to the Native Americans of this country. And I watch the debates around immigration that circulate around right now in all political sectors and all over the media. And I think to myself sometimes, we're not asking that question, because all of us in this country are immigrants, period. And the Native Americans still carry unresolved trauma and traumatize themselves in many regards. Some of them, because this is the cultural past that's yet to be integrated. We haven't even integrated the past in this country that we have with slavery. So we all, this is powerful stuff. And I'm giving this as like setting down truths here, because this work, you can lie to yourself if you want, but you won't get traction in moving on. I want you, your homework from this episode is to claim and own your past, part 1, period. Maybe spend however long you need there. Put away any books, any messages that somehow you don't need to go through and absorb and feel out your history, because I tell you, you can never lie to your own intuitive system. It's just going to fuck you up. And you're going to wonder, well, why am I stuck? Well, here's a clue. You're stuck because you are not letting yourself be okay with the history you really have. So one question I want you to evaluate for yourself is, have I given myself permission to actually look back in a culture that says never look back, just keep going forward? There's usefulness in looking back. And there comes a time where, okay, enough already. It's time to be present to where you are now in context to there. And let's do the alchemy of the now and let's move you on. So I've laid out history here. This is a history alive and well in your system. You've got personal history, you've got family history, you have social history, you have cultural history. Now, I'm going to throw in another one. You also have soul history, S-O-U-L. And this is where I would bring in past lives and perhaps these sorts of things. But I'm going to tell you something. I think your best traction isn't in that territory. It's in what you are dealing with in the here and now, what your soul chose to fuse into as an alchemist to bring a more holistic, mystical vibration to the whole of life. Through the truth, we're all connected as one thing. That's the end game. We all come from the same energy, and we all go back wherever we come from. We're all part of this monadic God energy, and that's the beginning and the end. And now we're in territory that language can't even cover. So I'm not going too much further there because I'm going to keep you here. But I want you to ask yourself, what's your woman and goal? So having given that big blow up of history and possibilities of your past, let's get it on the street level, baby. Let's get down. I want you to think about bring your present into this now. Let's bring your present now. I want you to just feel in yourself what in your present is painful. What in your present is making you feel stuck? What in your present, and let's qualify this a little bit. You know it's historically rooted. You know it's sourced from your history. Most notably, on the topic of tonight, from your family. I could do another show sometime on cultural history and all that kind of stuff, and I want to just say that that's relevant greatly. But let's just keep it tight with the family tonight. So what do you know is running in your family and running in your system? And it's interesting, and I'll admit this myself, I think growing up when I was more naive, I really thought I had kicked those past patterns of my family in the ass and they weren't part of me. Look at me, and oh yeah. What I found to be true for myself and all the clients I've ever worked with is that history is still alive. It just individuates differently for each of us, which means that it manifests differently based on your soul's energy, your soul contracts, based on your vulnerabilities, your unique wounding, it just manifests differently. So whereas my parents were both addicts at the level of substance abuse, that's never been a problem for me. But I've had addictions with other behavioral issues. And it's the same thing. I just didn't have a substance I was snorting or whatever. I had compulsive ways of handling the charges and intensity of life. That's still the addict. And it wasn't until my 30s that I went, wow, I actually have that archetype, because it wasn't obvious to me. So what's alive and well now in your field you might not make a direct correlation, or you may, to the things you've seen in your family. Now, I want to just say that make a connection on the level of, okay, let's get to the archetypal root of the behavior, the pattern, the pain, the trauma. And now let's see what your system recruited archetypally to handle that. It may be different than your siblings. It may be different than your parents. But it's still part of the cluster. Still part of that psychic DNA. So take a minute, scan your system out. and go, okay, well, what pattern did I use instead? And I think you'll start to find, you're going to start making some pretty profound connections to a lot of your history, to a lot of what's going on with you. Now, I'm going to interject something here. At a soul contract level, I'm going to keep weaving in and out of soul contracts and basic psychology and intuition and intuitive archetypal reads on yourself. I'm doing the holographic dance because that's how dynamic each of us are. But I want to put something forward here that you may have never considered. And I'm going to use a client reading to illustrate this. I had a client once that came to me, and this client was a full-blown addict in the very obvious alcoholic way. And he couldn't understand why he could not get sober. He was at the mercy of the momentum of this pattern. And he also didn't understand why his two other siblings led these really normal, sober lives with no addiction issues at all. And when I read this client, the archetypes that begin to speak to me in his field, in his contract. One was the wounded healer, which is taking on the wounding, the poison, and then having to find a way to heal it. Now, what he had contracted to do, as was revealed through the reading, was to absorb the poison of the family line because his soul was strong enough to shift it. And this dude had been through rehab, I don't know, 5 times by now. And was every time just getting deeper into the shame of not being able to get a handle on this pattern. So that's when people come to someone like me, when the obvious suspects and obvious strategies and blah, blah, blah are failing them. And when I read him, I said, you agreed to take on this painful piece of the family line, and you left your brothers and sisters out of the line of fire. Because you became, as you signed up to, the target, the sole target of this momentum. Now, this sort of soul contract I call the bodhisattva. In Buddhism, the bodhisattva is an enlightened being that's already achieved their own enlightenment, but still reincarnates because they want to free others from the wheel of suffering. So their own enlightenment isn't enough. I've got to come back and free everyone else. Now, this is just a way for you to understand the nature of this kind of soul contract, and it may be one you have. So while you may be fishing around in history and you may catch a few fish that are very relevant and that you need to hook in and reel in, what also may be true is that you're not going to catch a damn thing because you've got this bodhisattva wounded healer contract. And all I can tell you is, now let's sit down and let's, as mystics, wounded healers, and bodhisattvas, get down to your own alchemization of the dark lead in this opus that you agreed to work with and change to the gold. That's all I got for you. There's no past life to go fish around and catch. You are a soul strong enough to do this kind of work, period. So own that. And now let's get it on. That may be true for you. And it may be a mix of many things. Nonetheless, either way, whether you really are working out something from a past life, you really are working out something from family history, and it's really shaped and molded your identity and you're entrenched. You really are. It all comes down to the same thing, the now. Because at the end of the day, we can go fishing in history for all the reasons why, which may be useful or maybe not. Sometimes I think it's very useful, but we're still going to have to come back here to the now. So that said, let's regroup into the now through that question. What does the past ask of the present? Let's riff around here. What does the past sacrifice of your ancestors ask of the now? Do you even know what those were? This is where I would say to you, okay, now that we're on track with some clarity, some grittiness, now let's go back into let's do a meditation. I'm going to take you back to your ancestral memories from your family line. Now let's do that. because I've got you in the right context. I've got you 1 foot in the now as an alchemist. And we're only going back for greater understanding of the momentum in your system. That's it. This isn't an escape back to be a victim and to place blame. This is to get clarity as a spiritually mature adult and alchemist on the opus at hand. So I'll say, okay, we're going to go back to your past now. And we're going to look at the sacrifice of your ancestors, the struggles, the survival fears, the psychic DNA set in motion. And how much of that's now become physical DNA for you? What kind of soul epigenetics are going on to where things activate in you, archetypes activate in you as survival strategies, but they're not helping anymore. You're in a different era of intuition, I'd say co-creation, and I'd even say psychospiritual technology. So whereas maybe one of your ancestors survived through the beggar archetype, that's not a suitable archetype for you now. Not at all. So that said, what they went through? If you even know, maybe you know some of this. This is where maybe literally doing ancestry DNA can be very helpful. You can kind of track back and understand some of where your ancestors originated from, what they went through to try to, get footing maybe in the United States or wherever you live. And then you can go, okay, man, I wonder what was going on in history during that time. What was it like for them? What sacrifices did they go through? That's alive in your system to some degree, unless someone previous to you integrated it. It could very well be a driver in your reality and how you see yourself and how you function in your esteem system. Now, what about the past struggles and challenges of your own history? Oh, I just want to give you all a hug right now. It's probably going to make me cry. I know it's going to be a cry show. Because this is where we get into really painful stuff. And I want you to think about all that you've done to try to heal, to forgive, to do something different. And how can you honor that now? First, honor it through self-appreciation, part 1. You're badass. You are flawsome. And I think it takes a lot of soul guts to even come into this life. So let's just all, in the holiday spirit, give ourselves an amen, because we're all here. And that is massive. This planet, this dimension of challenges and everything that's here, the joy, the beauty, it's also an awesome, amazing creative experience. But it's hard too. I think we all need to, right now. Because we here. So hugs all around for your soul's courage. Hugs all around. And that said, let's drop into your life. And just for a minute, another part of your homework. Appreciate how badass you are and all that you've survived. It's amazing. It's amazing. So let's now pivot. How do you honor that now? How does that pass, those efforts? How do you honor that in the now? And I want to offer always the best way to honor that. In the first step is just unconditional presence and love for yourself. And I'm going to say unconditional, and in 5 minutes, we're all going to be in our conditional love with ourselves. So let's just also note that. I'm going to say unconditional, and you're like, I'm going to snort some of that, Ohotto. And then 5 minutes later, we'll all be like, oh, but I'd love myself, but I got 10 more pounds to go. I'd love myself, but God, I got this self-sabotaging pattern going on. Loving yourself unconditionally means unconditionally. So the best that you can. And I always say, when you can't, you can't, you don't have the juju. That's when you turn it over to the greater power and you say a soul prayer. Hey, universe, Buddha, Allah, Mary, Jesus, I don't care who you call in. Archangel Raphael, Zophiel, Michael, call them in. But say this, hey, I don't have it in me today activated to love myself unconditionally. I need your power to activate that. I need a jump start. My friends, you will always have that prayer answered. You always will. So the way you honor your past is there. I'm just going to love me and all my flossomeness as I am, as fucked up as I am, as awesome as I am right now. And if I don't think I can, I got a soul prayer I got to get going with to activate it anyway. Because you're always worthy. Nothing ever in life is about your worthiness. And that's another way now we honor our past, is we come into the moment and we say, I'm enough now. There's no getting to enough. There's nothing I can do to be better or finally enough. There's just this life. There's just me living it. And I'm enough. Done. There's no trial, no judge, no jury, no prison sentence to serve to get to enough, folks. It's here right now. You know, if the woman in gold, if Maria Altman hadn't won, what was cool about her, I suspect, this is me, I guess, intuitively looking at this and also perhaps speculating, is that I think had she lost and not gotten the painting back, it wouldn't have diminished her worth. Because what it would have been more is a comment on the Austrian government and its inability to take responsibility for its complicity in what happened to her and her family. But it would have never been about her worth. So it was more symbolic. It was an owning. And how fitting, if we talk alchemy, the woman in gold, from lead to gold. But as alchemists, we have to remember we're not the lead or the gold. Maria Altman wasn't the lead or the gold. She's the alchemist. You're the alchemist. Don't ever forget that. Now, what about the past pain and abuse you've been through? How do you honor that now? Let me give you just a really quick basic key. Stop abusing yourself. Stop hurting yourself. You want to honor what your inner child went through? Stop hurting you now. And that's very insidious, because the way we hurt ourselves now isn't always obvious. We're horrifically perfectionist with ourselves, aren't we? That's, to me, a form of self-violence. We judge ourselves all the time. We make ourselves wrong because we can't maybe move on out of a past pattern, or we can't maybe do better, be better, live our quote-unquote best life. There's only the life you have. Get out of this better, best crap. It's all shame-driven. It's shame language. So you want to honor your past pain and abuse? Stop perpetuating it with yourself. What is that going to look like? You know, for all of you, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to vary for each of you out there. What would it look like to stop abusing yourself? But I am putting you to task to honor what the past asks of your present by saying, start loving yourself more. In every situation in your life, come away with more love for yourself, not more shame, not more perfectionism, not more, I gotta be this to get to enough, fill in the blank. Start to honor yourself as enough now, and stop your own cycle with yourself of self-abuse. I'm giving you permission. I think a lot of times we keep that going because of our shame, our slivers of shame that are so deep in us that make us feel like we actually deserve that kind of self-treatment. So you're getting full permission. You want to move out of your past? Own the present permission. The present permission to explore the unknown of self-love and what it would be like to stop your self-violence. How do you honor your past trauma, your loss, your grief? Well, I don't think we're a culture that teaches grief very well. And how to be with loss, and how to understand that loss and grief are nourishing experiences. They can tell you how much love you experience with someone or something. Loss can show you what you really value, what to build your life around in terms of those values, what choices you need to make in alignment to those values. Loss is an incredible instructor. Grief is an incredible medicine. So the only way we really honor loss and grief of our history is we just feel it. We feel it. And how do we honor our trauma? First, you feel it through. You metabolize it. You integrate it somehow, and to get it to neutral. So there's a lot to be said in this territory of how do you honor your past. I want you to think about, what is your woman in gold? What is the thing that you need to retrieve, that you need to bring a sense of connection back to in yourself? What is the thing that you are under soul contract to alchemize? Can you name that? And if you can't, I'm going to hold you to the fire and say, well, why can't you? Why can't you name that? Go through your back door. Go through your shadow. Why can't I name this? And a lot of times we won't name that because we know as soon as we do, we're responsible for how our life goes next. We're responsible for our lives as alchemists. And let me just say, when I say responsible, I do not mean to imply you're doing this on your own at all. None of us gets through the opus alone. We need helpers. We need grace. We need friends. We need people who really see us. We need soul connections. We need intuitive clarity. We need guides and counselors and therapists and healers. We need a team. So the opus isn't done alone. But part of self-responsibility is to say, I actually need a team. I can't do this alone. That's being very responsible and very clear with yourself. So I'm going to shut down this segment shortly here and kind of leave you all in these questions that I want you to live in. I want you to explore. I want you to feel through. And the last thing I'm going to say is, when facing something in your present, intuitively track what the past would ask of you on the ground level. Okay? What would it ask of you? And I'm going to tell you, the end game will always be this. 1, unconditional love and presence with yourself. Totally accept everything as it is. Own it. It's your past, not mine. We could share a past too, but you know what I'm saying. Do not disassociate, but then differentiate. Accept, feel it through as long as it takes, and you're not in control of that timeline. What are you going to, tell someone your grief should be done by now? Grief has its own intuitive cycle. I still find myself in moments of grieving the loss of my father. That was over 20 years ago. And I've learned that that's how grief is. That's how loss is. That's how pain is. That's how trauma is. I still get mad about shit done to me in my childhood, even though generally I've integrated it. So, okay, you have a day where the past triggers up. Let it be here. And that alone is doing something different than you've been taught. That alone. And then you can take the next step. And the end game is, after unconditional presence and love, it is in fact, do something different. So if you find that your past shows up in the food addict for you, do something different first by feeling your feelings. Do the thing your family members could not do. Feel the real, raw reality of the pain, of the challenges, of the anxiety. Feel it out. And then you might be like taking another piece of cake and feeling it at the same time for a while. Great. It's a great start. Start where you are, but begin with micro moves of doing something different. Something new comes from something new. So you've got to do something new. I get asked all the time, how do I get out of this pattern? How do I stop my family line? How do I change what my family patterns and dynamics are? And my answer will always be, do something different. Don't think something different. Don't wish for something different. Don't fantasize about something different. Actually fucking do it. And start with, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to love me right now as I am. I'm going to love all of that history. I don't have to like it, but I'm going to be with it. Because I'll tell you what, if you've got fire-breathing dragons handed down from family lines and culture and society in your system, they're only breathing fire because no one else would listen to them. No one else would take the time to feel and hear what they had to say. The first thing different is to listen, to feel, to what? Be present. It's like you're being haunted. And in hauntings, how do we get rid of ghosts? There's this whole bullshit about banish them, sage them away. Oh yeah? Is that what we do? No. A ghost is a spirit that hasn't found its way back to the light. It's trying to find its way. It's stumbling around your house, trying to get back to the light. You want to release it and get out of the haunting? Talk to it. Ask it what it needs. Why are you stumbling around my house? And then you got to do one more thing. You got to call in an angel. You got to call in a team transition member from heaven and say, all right, I'm going to call in a transition team member to take you back to the light. You are no different. Your hauntings are no different. You want to sage your history and disassociate? It's just going to get stronger. It's just going to control your life all the more. The way through is to say, hey, ghost, what's up? Let's drink a root beer. Let's chat. What's going on? Why are you haunting my ass? You haunt yourself. Your past haunts you because you will not talk to it. And you put your own system in a jam. I just love me some truth. So listen, we're going to take a break here. I'm going to transition to taking your, I guess, your bringing you on camera and doing readings. I'm also so used to saying taking your call because I used to do radio for 8 years. Another thing that helps you with your past, I'm going to give you a little something here, is knowing how to be with your shadow. So check it out. I will not be live next week. I won't be live for a while because I'm going to be teaching a course on mace.com. I want to tell you about it, you guys. This is a really freaking awesome course. It's so appropriate for the holidays. And before I say more, I'm just going to show you a little something I put together that I think you're going to really enjoy. To check it out. Okay. And then we'll be back. Enjoy. Hey everybody, it's Robert Ohotto, and happy O-Holidays. It's the O-Holiday season. You know, the special time of year where you get to hang out with family members, friends, loved ones, and those wonderful people who trigger you the most. Oh yes, it is the O-Holiday season where we get to meet everyone's shadow, our own shadow, and get down to some shadow dancing. But don't worry, Ohotto's got your back this O-Holiday season with a brand new course I want to tell you about. So, do you find that there are people in your life that just know how to get under your skin and put you in a tailspin? Are there some people in your life that no matter what you do, you just cannot hold your center around them? Do you want to know what your sacred agreements are with these people so you can neutralize that and get on with a different dance? What about the people in your life that compulsively cause you to abandon yourself in relationship to them again and again and again? What's up with that? Are you tired of people acting like you're their projection screen and putting all their shadow crap on you with blame and scapegoating? You want to end that and get out of that theater and stop being that projection screen? Well, how about this? You find yourself in any throwdowns with people online lately that you just couldn't shake off after you got done going back and forth in that shadow warfare? Well, I got you. I want to tell you about a brand new course that's just absolutely perfect for this holiday season. And to do that, we're going to take it down a notch and get a little serious here, because this is really actually very deep work. I'd like to introduce you to The Art of Shadow Dancing with Archetypes, a reflections parallel course with me, Robert Ohotto, taught December 11th through 13th on mace.com. Each of us are born with a sacred agreement to be in relationships with others as a fundamental facet of our destiny. Yet any time you are in a relationship with someone, whether that be a parent, spouse, child, colleague, boss, friend, or a larger group of people, you will also find that you are in relationship with their shadow. So whenever we relate to someone's light, we also pull in their darkness. It's just how it works. And the same is true for those that relate to us. They pull in our darkness to them too. So many of us have been beat up by the dark side of other people, whether that's being bullied or whether that's being manipulated or controlled or engaged in narcissists that just suck us dry. We have all dealt on some level throughout our whole entire lives with the shadow of other people. And some of us have really paid the price for that. So the question isn't really, can we opt out of that? No, you will always forever be in relationship with the shadow of somebody. But the question does become, how can you relate from a more empowered place? A place that's self-connected, a place that's self-directed, where you get a conscious response on how to engage the dark side of someone else. Well, I got some good news for you. There's absolutely another way to relate to the shadow side of other people and pivot with power. How? Well, first you have to understand the shadow as a system of power management. Second, you have to know its archetypes. I have absolutely found that if you can give the shadow of someone a good intuitive archetypal read, then you will be positioned with a whole plethora of new options on how to relate to them. I'm going to teach you this in this 3-part course on mace.com, December 11th through 13th. This is broken into 3 different sessions. Each will be 2 hours. I'd like to just take you on a little tour through these sessions right now. So the first session, we begin with your sacred agreements and the shadow. In this session, we will explore your soul contracts with the laws of the human psyche. We're also going to look at how the shadow was formed, the anatomy of the shadow, the birth of shadow archetypes, understanding the language of manipulation, identifying who your noble adversaries are, what your shadow esteem system is, and what it means to be triggered and why this happens. We're also going to look at how do you neutralize triggers through a compassionate shadow process. I will also teach you how the shadow functions as a system of power management and survival, while beginning an introduction to the primary shadow archetypes. Speaking of which, that takes us right on into lesson 2, where I will be looking at the shadow archetypes and invitations to the shadow dance. In this session, I will teach you how to recognize the various shadow archetypes in others by identifying each shadow archetype's pattern and language. We will also examine in depth how the shadow archetypes in you call in, activate, and pair up with the shadow archetypes of others, thereby setting up the shadow dance. We will begin a deep analysis of archetypes such as the child, the prostitute, the saboteur, the scapegoat, the bully, the narcissist, the coward, the manipulator, the tyrannical king, the wicked queen, and many, many more. And that's going to take us right into the third session, where we're going to pivot then and look at how do you turn the dark to light, the alchemy of turning the dark to light. So in this session, I will continue to explore how to accurately recognize when you've invited yourself to a shadow dance unconsciously. Yep, you invited yourself. And when you've invited someone else unconsciously, and how to rescind or decline such invitations. You will also learn how to intuitively identify and activate the archetypes that can neutralize shadow attacks from others, assess when shadow dancing requires a Zen approach versus some martial arts. I'm going to have you all Aikido masters by the time we're done. And how to use the power of language to thwart someone's dark momentum and contain their shadow. We will also explore the best methods of escaping the dance floor when needed. Sometimes you just got to get off that dance floor. I will conclude this series by gifting you with a succinct step-by-step compassionate strategy of how to keep yourself neutral, empowered, self-connected, and self-protected when dealing with the shadow agenda of other people. We're always going to be encountering this our whole entire life. So while it's the holidays, holidays for me, and this is very relevant during this time, what I'm going to teach you is something you can use for the rest of your life. It's a whole new way of approaching the shadow in yourself and also in other people. And most notably, this will be the best gift you give yourself when it comes to how you relate to yourself, to you. I hope you'll join me. I can't wait to gift you with this on mace.com. Please click the link in the description for more information, and I will see you as we go through the art of shadow dancing with archetypes. Happy holidays. Hey everybody, welcome back. It is going to be a crazy course. I hope you will join me. I will be busy doing that for quite some time, both the pre-production, teaching it, and also post-production. So I will be off the air on this TV show for a little bit, but I will join you back here right before Christmas one last time for this year. So let's get down to some readings. There's some, you guys, by the way, great questions. It was really, really hard for me to pick who to take because there were so many great questions. Just a little protocol if you want to participate going forward in the future with live reading segment of this show. You do have to kind of be signed up about 24 hours before the live show because there's so many questions there. I probably won't even get to yours if it's too late for one. Part two, we do email everyone on the protocols of how to participate. And there are things you do need to know through that email, such as an extension for your browser so you can come on live with me, etc. So if you haven't gone to Crowdcast and gotten that extension, I can't take you tonight because you will not show up on the screen. So just so you know, make sure you're always on my newsletter. It's one of the best ways also to stay in the know on all the shows and all the show topics I have coming up. And yeah, so let's get going. I love these questions. And what I'm going to do is, as we wait for the person I'm calling to come on screen, I'm going to go through their question and kind of talk about it a little bit to the audience, to all of you. And then hopefully by that time I'm done, they'll be on screen and we'll be going at it. And I'll be doing some readings. All right. So the first person, I am going right with the 18 votes. And by the way, you can vote questions up here on Crowdcast. And that does matter. You know, I kind of look at that and go, okay, everyone's interested in that. And it's, if it fits the show topic, then game on. So, all right, Leah, it's on, my girl. Let me just see how I get you on camera again. And this is what gets frustrating. All right, hold on a second here. Leah, I don't think I can pull you up from the questions section. I tried that last time a million times. Leah, just say hi in this chat section for me real quick, would you? There we go. All right, there we are. All right, I'm inviting you on screen. So Leah's question, which all of you have already read and kind of looked at, is about being an adoptee and a twin. She's both. So I thought it was a great way to kind of look at this phenomena through her question, and we'll see what's up. I'm going to jump in with my intuition and do a little reading with her, and we'll see what we get. Hey, Leah, how are you?
Hi. Good, thanks.
Great. So what's your question? Let's get the audience involved as well. This is an interesting question. I talked a little bit already about psychic DNA and this whole soup that becomes us. But your question's got another twist to it. It's about being a twin as well. So I'll let you tell it and ask it in your own words. And while you're doing it, why don't you just tell me your birth date so I can tune in a bit more?
It's October 13th.
Okay.
I was just wondering, let's see. Oh yeah, if you could just talk a little bit more about the twin archetype. I know you kind of touched on the adoption issue, but I can see kind of how being adopted has affected a lot of my relationships, not just my relationship with society and like America and stuff, but also here. And then also with my interpersonal relationships, like a lot of my friendships and romantic pursuits and stuff. And I
sure
the archetype might kind of coincide with like codependent, addict. There's a bunch of stuff
totally
involved with
absolutely
that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna this is good. Thank you for coming on screen, and you're also doing everything right. Headphones, I hear you great. I just wanted to point out to everyone else, this is how you do it. So first thing is to tell you about the twins, the twin piece. I think that's a good door in. I started to learn about twin energy through doing one of the intuitive tools I use is astrology. So when I would do use that as an intuitive tool doing readings back in the early days when I was first starting, I was so taken aback by all of the kind of things that I had been told by other astrologers or intuitives or psychics about twins not applying in the actual reading. So when you're coming into, let's say, life, and you are sharing the same DNA, and are you identical twins?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're even sharing the identical physical characteristics and everything. And you're also sharing, might I add, the same archetypal architecture. So you are stepping into a life path with very similar patterns, or let's say options in destiny and patterns of destiny development. That will be the same, but the X factor here that I learned is that even though that's true, so you're both born on, you know, the 13th of October, you still have different soul energy. And I definitely feel that about you and your sister. There's a different soul energy. And what that means is, even though the archetypes and the architecture are the same, how each of your souls work with it will be different. So another way to say it as well is how you adapt, in your case, to the, I'm going to say this, the trauma of being adopted. I know that sounds weird, but I'm going to say it because it's feeling true in your system to me.
I feel like there's a lot of trauma. Yeah.
How you feel about that, how you pivot and move with that in life, and the patterns and the archetypes on offer through your soul contract, how you do that's going to be different than your sister. And so here you've already named that, you know, a lot of what you start to see in yourself is that there's this sense of using the addict and using codependency and all these different things. What I think is going on in the trauma of adoption for you is that there's this core fear that you're not wanted, because that is still something that imprinted into you, even though you were, you know, pre-verbal, all that kind of stuff, perhaps when you were adopted. It's still there. There's a still core feeling of I'm not wanted and protected by, you know, those that gave birth to me. Also, you do have, you know, the whole Korean momentum in your system that's also there. And I really think that should be met with curiosity and exploration and understanding as a factor of identity development and esteem development and esteem system development. I think the thing is, what's really crucial in this lifetime for you, and this is going to apply to your sister as well in some ways, but I feel like she deals with things a bit differently than you do. She has different archetypal activations that she uses for safety, security, esteem, and survival. But nonetheless, this will apply to both of you to some degree. So it's really important for you to learn how to go into this is where I'm going to have to go mystical with you. I have to pull you into becoming a mystical parent to your own inner child. Because I feel like a lot of what you've sought out in life is belonging. You know, there's this whole driver of where do I belong? Who's going to love me? Who will be my family? And the pivot of power here is a mystical pivot. We could go through psychotherapy and do counseling, all that stuff you've probably already tried. And I would just, at this point in your development, and because you've tried so many things, I would say, listen, this is what you're going to do. You're going to open yourself intuitively to how to parent yourself like a mystic. How do you be your own ideal mother or father and create an internal power base of the home archetype? Because your quest is about home. Where am I safe? Where do I belong? It's all under that archetype. And there's another bigger vein here for you that is about how do you develop into a sense of equality with those that are not of your race. There's already positioned in you this sense of I'm less than. Lucky me, they took me in. And this generally the culture at large. And that's true for lots of people who are in a class of being a minority to the dominant, you know, race of the culture, which in this country is white. But that nonetheless is a big thing your soul signed up for, was how do you cultivate and create a mystical esteem system? There's a lot of mystical clauses here. So it's useful to start at the ground level of psychology and, you know, and kind of understand the backbone of psychological development, but that's I already feel is already worn out for you. My sense is the pivot next is to go, okay, I've got to source the greater grid of power, the mystical grid, And I've got to move with mysticism in my system and its power. And I've got to start to then translate that into maybe internal psychological ways that you can parent yourself and make yourself feel at home and find a way to feel like wherever you go, that's home. Wherever in the world you go, that's home. And that you belong because you're here. I mean, when we go to this mystical soul esteem, the idea is that what's active in that is we have worth because we're alive, period. There's nothing to do to get to worthiness. There's no, it's more about, I have to find that power the culture doesn't give you. Your adopted family couldn't have given you. No one can give this to you, but spirit, but your own mystical pursuit of yourself. And really, sweetheart, that's what I got for you. It's more of this mystical realm of how do you move with mystical power and let that reshape the psychology, reshape, and then activate in you archetypes that have a mystical attunement. So parental archetypes in us, you can self-parent, but can you mystically self-parent? What does that mean versus the psychological definition of self-parenting? You know, being the ideal, good enough mother or father that you didn't have. You got to upgrade and align to something more mystical in that realm. Similarly, with your esteem system and your sense of sourcing value, how do you do that in a way where, you know, in ego esteem, which is not right or wrong, it's where we all begin. We get esteem by getting feedback from the environment about our worth and our value. And then we keep moving that way and going that way with strategies to gain more value. Well, with mystical esteem, that's not what we do. We go, wait a minute, I'm enough now. So now what? What am I doing next? Who am I loving next? You know, I think the thing I feel about you, by the way, this was really powerful, is any relationship you've ever been in, I think there's been this sense that, God, how do I say this? That you've doubted the sincerity of affection and love. And you've doubted it because you're not in your own mystical alignment. I think once you find a more mystical alignment of the mystical lover,
okay,
then when you're in relationships with people, it's not about validation. It's about expression of worthiness and sharing in value together. So a lot of what I feel is in your relationship pattern that's historical is the relationships that finally get you to enough, or someone that sees you're enough. Now add in the mix of you're kind of also looking for mommy or daddy. And that becomes part of the driver. And you know, some part of you and the mystic in you goes, yeah, that's not ever going to nourish me. So you've never, this is what I was trying to say, you've never felt settled in any relationship because some part of you, the mystic in you that's meant to really emerge, doesn't jive with that more socialized level of how we love and relate, because you know there's really no bondedness in that for you. Now, other people might find comfort and be fine there. You're scheduled for something of a different voltage. Doesn't make you better. In fact, you know, it's harder to get to. But I feel like that's really a lot of what you're going through. You've been through, you and your sister both in your own way. You've been through a real dark, brutal, like keep it real, hit, like smack your face on the pavement cycle.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's hard. Yeah. The reason why I'm kind of asking this question is because I've been in Korea for almost 8 or 9 years, and I'm thinking about going back to the Western world in the next year and a half. And I kind of want to, I'm not sure if, I thought I worked through a lot of issues involving adoption and stuff like that. But yeah, the relocation thing is kind of a big deal. And I'm kind of wondering if stuff from the adoption will kind of resurface when I move back.
It absolutely will. I mean, but I don't think I wouldn't treat that as an intuitive coordinate of whether you should go or not, because in fact, your greater fulfillment of potential is in the West. And so to fulfill this growth you've signed up for, it makes sense you go to where it's going to challenge you and where you're going to get triggered, because every trigger gives us an opportunity to do alchemy, to love ourselves more, to do something different than what our past momentum has done. So a trigger is always a summoning of the past in the sense of, oh, I get to meet my history here and then take that mystical moment and go, I'm going to let it all be okay. I'm going to let it be okay that I'm meeting this. it's being summoned. I'm being haunted again. And now I'm going to talk to that ghost. I'm going to get to know it. And so what I recommend is reframing your potential on a pain pleasure paradigm. Don't frame potential on it should be easy. Actually, not at all. Most of the potential we all birth comes from, the pain of birth. We got to squeeze stuff out, and give birth to these things and our power in ourselves. And so I feel I would really explore coming back over the next couple months and come back as a mystic. Come back as a mystic. Stay in the moment and come back with yourself aligned to a mystical center. And that doesn't mean you're always going to be aligned. You're going to get thrown out of that again and again. That does not mean you're off track. That's the training ground. That's where you build the muscles, you get stronger. You have a strong entrepreneur. And I feel like part of this cycle has been to bring that online in your destiny. And that's very nascent. It's still coming on, but you're going to rock that archetype. But you've got to rock it as a mystic, or you'll lose your sense of equality with people, and you'll lose your sense of, and own your adoption, own your Asian background. I think that's what makes you so cool, and unique. And there's something about that that's going to propel things. So hug it in and claim it. It's badass, really. Does it make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the reading.
You're welcome. Yeah. The main thing though, that relationship piece felt very powerful around, and I'll just say it this way. I don't think you're going to feel comfortable in relationships unless you're on mystical ground with yourself primarily, because that's really in this life where you've always been pointed to come into an intimacy with others through. And it'll ring false otherwise. And you'll always doubt it. So some of the doubt was codependency and your own insecurities and your own esteem wounding and stuff like that. But some of the doubt was also the mystic in you going, this ain't going to cut it. There's no safety or security in this kind of love. This is all conditional and based on blah, blah, blah. And I know in game, this isn't the gig I signed up for. So parse through both, and then let the more mystical energy well up and arise. And thanks for your question. It was great. I loved it. And everyone else really wanted me to answer it too. So wonderful. Thanks for coming on camera. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
All right, sweetheart. Good luck. Keep me posted. I want to hear about it.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Ooh, that was good. So let's go down the next list. I got a list here of y'all. All right. Ooh, yes. Come to Robert. We're going to take Christina Butler next. So Christina, give me a shout out in the chat. If you're here. Christina Butler, going once. All right, Christina, I'm going to move on. Oh, do we got you? Okay. Here we go. Christina's coming on. So this is what Christina's up to, y'all. She struggled with lifelong illness and autoimmunity, had her thyroid removed. Lots of fun illness here. Lots of family karma going on. Hey, Christina.
Yes. Hi.
And I got the right Christina, right? Oh, now she's gone. Come back. Okay, I'm going to, you should just come back. I don't know. Hopefully she has strong enough internet. Welcome to live broadcasting. Child of alcoholic family, struggle with her own addictions. How can she thrive and change the theme of her life? Scared of and been avoiding commitment in all areas of her life. Did I choose this? Okay, let's see if we can get you back, Christina. Accepted and connecting. Okay. She might have an internet issue. So if you don't come back soon, I'm going to move on. Yes, guys, you got to have strong internet. There's a way to test that, by the way, if you're going to come on camera. Okay, we're going to move on, and hopefully I'll catch you back next time or later in the broadcast. I am going to go with Hillary. Hillary Malley. Hillary, give me a shout out. Is Hillary in the house? Okay, going once. Okay, so Hillary is not here. All right, or she's not connecting. Let's keep going down. Okay, I'm going to go to... Oh my gosh, there's so many great questions here. Did Hillary show up? No, she did not. Let's go with... Oh, man. Let's go with Courtney Simmons. Courtney, you in the house? Say hi in the chat. All right, you guys, we're striking out here. You guys are not responding. So, you know, if you're not going to be present, I would ask a respect that you do not ask questions if you're not going to be present for the live broadcast going forward from now on. Hey, Courtney. All right, girl, I'm gonna call you up. But that said, I do want you guys to be here or don't ask the question because you're taking up everyone's time, including mine. So a little bit of rules here. All right. Courtney, I invited you on, accept and come on. And Courtney is talking about her childhood, a keen sense of what she didn't want to replicate dynamics, and she seems to be replicating. Hey, Courtney, what's going on?
How are you?
Oh, now I've got everybody. Okay, Christina, I'm gonna come back to you next. We'll get you next.
Okay.
All right. Wow, that was interesting. All right, so Courtney, tell the audience what's up, and while you're doing that, give me your birth date so I can tune in.
August 21st.
All right.
And let's see. Growing up, I realized watching my mom how I didn't want to engage in mothering and being in relationship. So I had a long relationship. I got out of it saying, hey, this is going down the same path as what I saw growing up. And then I ended up getting into two more that were probably worse than, I kind of went downhill from there. So now I'm single mom and pretty much scared to even have a relationship because I don't want to bring her into that dynamic of putting the partner first before the child. And then it's translated into how do I put myself first and work on me so I can be strong and a good role model for her. But yet.
So I'm going to jump in. I'm just going to jump in because I got things to say. You know, with your mother didn't have the mother archetype. So, and in fact, beyond that, I really feel like she almost resisted womanhood. There's a sense of not being embodied in her womanhood, her femininity, her, and then that translates also into her inability to really make peace with the mother archetype and be a nurturing force for you. So first of all, is that making sense to you? I want to make sure you're on the same page with me.
It does. She's a beautiful woman. If you look at her, she's the feminine ideal, but as far as nurturing, mothering, it was really not there.
And so the thing about her is that, you know, she's also very smart. Like this is someone who thinks for herself, someone very independent, very strong-willed, strong personality. But the thing is that culturally, you know, that kind of power in a woman, it doesn't jive well, especially with women of her generation. So the lineage here, you know, because this is what you're after as well, you can recognize like, wow, with my mother, there was this resistance to the womanhood. And I guess I could say now the womanhood as defined by culture at the time. If womanhood had been defined as like an Amazonian Artemis type, you know, badass warrior, radical, revolutionary, you know, beauty, and she would have been down with it. But once again, there's not a nurturing mother archetype there. This ain't Betty Crocker, honey.
No.
So you have more of the mother archetype than her. I feel that that's a strong soul archetype for you, actually. I would have to say you mothered her a lot of the time.
Yeah, I did.
So the thing that I want to come full circle here is, however, the archetype of destiny that guides a lot of your development, in context to the mother legacy that, you know, we identified, is the queen. So it's what I want you to kind of explore for yourself is how can you, because here's the other side of this that you didn't say, but I feel in you. Though you're worried about, hey, if I get a partner, it's going to be a repeat of my mother's dynamics, and I know what that felt like, and I don't even want to go there, you know. But the problem with that for you, shall I say challenge, is you're a lover. You are a lover. So to not love, to not be in loving dynamics is going to also leave you lopsided in your life.
Yeah.
So what I'm after here, per the queen, is how can you be someone who owns herself? And by queen, I mean a self-sovereign as a woman, that you own all of who you are, including your mother archetype, including a lot of the things that are very similar to your own mother. Mm-hmm. You're smart, you're independent, and you don't want to be subservient. You want a partner. Mm-hmm. You don't want someone to be your daddy. You don't want someone to be your son. You want a partner. Mm-hmm. You don't want someone, you know, whatever. So what I'm after here is, how can you be a woman who is a queen, self-possessed, but also relatable? And this is where, if you turn to the culture, you're not going to learn this. You got it. Once again, we're doing mystical pivots here. You're going to have to go to the soul mystical area of yourself and go, how do I intuitively live in womanhood for myself? And what does that look like? What does that mean? And the thing about that is, no one can tell you what that is but your own soul. You know, feminists can't tell you what that is. Misogynists can't tell you what that is. I can't tell you what that is. You have to go in and go, what will it look like for me to own myself as a queen, to shine in life in the ways like your mother did, but also you are a mother. You do have the mother archetype. You are a lover. You do want connection and nourishment through relationship. So the queen to me is the one that can coordinate it all as a force of destiny, can say you can own yourself and hold court with another sovereign. But in that dynamic, it's about interdependency, not codependency. It's about owning yourself intuitively and living in your womanhood intuitively. And some days that means you prioritize your child. Sometimes that means on a certain day you prioritize your marriage or your relationship or whatever it is. So it all works in a sense of intuitive coordination, not in rules or fears, or it's more, I'm just going to roll with what my system's telling me is true today. And in doing that, you're self-connected, you own yourself, but you also understand all relationships demand compromise. Being a mother demands compromise and sacrifice. Being a partner demands it as well. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive of all of these factors of who you are genuinely, not being, getting a chance to be connected, getting a chance to live in their full glory in concert with each other instead of as adversarial forces. The model your mother gave you was adversarial in terms of how to be in your womanhood. There was a lot of battling she was doing with herself. And I think I sense about her, she carries a lot of guilt about how she raised you in your relationship with her.
She does.
Yeah, I really feel that there's a lot of guilt there for her. And she, it's just, I almost want to give her a hug and say, listen, sweetheart, you're just too badass for the culture. No one taught you could be badass and find a way to be a mother. And I don't think she would ever been like Betty Crocker to you, because it's just not her way. And it's not how she's wired. It's not her archetypal framework. But she could have been okay as being the mother that would have been genuine to her, and I think there were moments where that came through. I sense like there were moments in your childhood where that connection was there, but it was pretty distorted by other things. So go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like it was turned or flipped in a manipulative type of way with her energy and the way that she used it.
Well, there's definitely, with your mother, it's the wicked queen archetype. It's the mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? Better not be my daughter. There was a sense of that, because that would have been a threat to her own sense of dominance and value. And yeah, it's tricky. There's tricky dynamics there. So I'm sure you did feel that sometimes, like that subtle manipulation, just a little dimming you down here and there, little ways to kind of get you a little dimmer so that you didn't outshine her. So you didn't feel threatened by, all that makes you you. And then also, honestly, sort of backward compliment, I suppose, but her feeling like just the lover you are and the nurturer you are, and knowing she didn't have that, also not how to not feel guilty about that, so you got scapegoated. There was that element as well. So it's a complex relationship. I want to assure you, though, it's well within your capacity and destiny to find another way. Speaking of how do you differentiate from your past, you do something different. You become the woman who can shine, who can rule herself, hold court with another person, who can be a mother in a very nurturing dynamic. And it's not like have it all kind of stuff. This is different. This is how you relate to your own power, yourself, and who you are unconditionally, and get your needs met in essential ways. So to me, this is about a pivot of perspective, a pivot of all of you gets to be here. And you don't have to dim down for anyone. I always tell everyone, I've been saying this for 15 years, if your light's too bright, tell them to put on sunglasses, because your destiny is not to dim down for people. We need you to be in your star quality to illumine us, and to give us warmth and nourish us, as does your daughter. And if you want to, my sense is if you want to leave a legacy, it's just owning all of yourself unconditionally and teaching that. That's and the next thing I always tell parents is the best gift we give our kids is presence. Presence, just be present. You're not perfect. You're never going to be perfect. So just be present. Teach them I'm here. I'm here in all my flossomeness for you. And I'm working it out and I'll always will be, but I'm here. Never doubt that.
Yeah.
So I think those are some really good pivots.
Okay.
Cool. I'm sure that spoke to lots of people. A lot of people probably have. I know there was a few questions actually that resonated along the lines of that as well. But thanks for coming on camera and being here. I appreciate it.
Okay. Appreciate it.
And keep me posted. Give me feedback.
Okay.
I'd love to hear more. All right, sweet. All right, Courtney.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so I'm going to cycle back. Who did not come on that was going to come on that needs to come on? All right. And then that came on when I was on with someone else. All right. Christina Butler, where are you? There you are. Okay. I see you. All right, let's try this again. There we go. Okay, so we're getting on with Christine. There she is in her full glory.
Hi. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Third time's a charm. I don't know what time is it. So tell us what's going on. Tell me your birth date.
So my birth date is May 12th, 76.
Okay. And what's up?
So what's up? I have had autoimmune disorders my whole life. So my body is attacking itself. It primarily affects my eyes. My thyroid was affected. I'm 42 years old, and I really want to change this. I'm tired of the sick theme. I grew up in an alcoholic family. I have two other siblings. I was the sibling who spoke up about what was wrong. And in listening to your talk, I've heard a lot of things that resonated with me. Like, I'm not honoring my voice. I want to change the sick theme. I'm going to ramble on.
It's okay. Let me jump in and we'll just start threading it out because I'm already getting impressions and I want to kind of jump in. I want you to reframe something here because I think it's crucial. First of all, there's a lot of shame in your system. There's a lot of making yourself wrong about everything, and that's obviously replicated itself. One could say in the autoimmune, when your immune system, which is supposed to protect you, is actually attacking you.
Yes.
And then you could make yourself wrong about that. I mean, stop.
Right.
No. So a dominant pattern for you in the overall journey here is the wounded healer. It's a very strong archetype in your field. And I want to reframe a few things to help you work with it from a different place of power, because I think you're working with it more from shame and, trying to not be sick. Well, you are. You know, you just are, you know, you're having issues, and that's just what it is. And the first step is always, you know, can you just say that, not that you like it, but that it's okay. In the wounded healer pattern, exists this paradox in healing, that the wound sometimes can't heal until you accept that it may never heal. So it's this weird sort of paradox of like, I got to accept that it'll never heal, and then maybe it'll heal. Yeah, exactly. So part of what's working against yourself as your immune system is you trying to force your system or will your system to do something that is, first of all, shame driven, but also looping you back into this sort of interior self violence with yourself about it all.
Yeah.
Full stop's got to happen when you just go, you know what? Fine. My autoimmune system is here to stay. Okay. Now what? And not say that with your mind, because I'm sure you have said that with your mind.
Yes.
It's saying it with your whole system. And I can't language exactly. You just know when you do that. You just like, it's like, you know, when you've set a boundary with somebody and you really mean it this time, your power backs it up. Okay. You know, it's like when I tell my dog sit, and if my power backs it up, he'll sit. If my power doesn't back that up, he looks at me like, what? You want me to sit? Oh, hell no. I want to play. But if my power goes sit, boom, he's on the ground.
I think you're nailing something for me, because I've looked for other people to do this for me. I've wanted other people to fix me. You know what I mean? So,
well, let me continue on this thread, because I didn't get to your voice yet.
Okay.
And that's what I want to shift the framework around. You think, you know, you're not owning your voice. I want to say it a different way. Let's get in harmony with what your system is doing. What your system is telling you is, if you own your voice, you will not survive. That's a different approach than, I'm not owning my voice. That's full of shame. And we hear people say it all the time, in their victim and in their shame. I'm not owning my voice. I know I need to own my voice. Actually, let's get out of the shame, and let's become technicians and look at the real reality that your system reads, because you were taught this growing up, that owning your voice is a threat to survival.
Yeah.
Until you meet it there, you're not going anywhere. You won't free up your voice, because you're fighting your own subconscious instincts and the archetypes it's recruited, including your immune system. You're fighting against, you are in a battle with yourself, as is mirrored by your immune system. So your voice, the first thing is, you have to learn how to feel safe having one.
Right.
That's where you go in. Stop making yourself wrong for not owning it. Your system has put in play a way not to, so you will survive. That's how it read things, and it was accurate. It's just not accurate now. First step is, I've got to be safe to own it. So let's thread through that. I love this for you. I'm getting goosebumps. How can you own your voice in a way that you still feel safe while doing it? What's that look like? What's it look like to go, you know, I'm going to own my voice, and I'm going to find a way to be safe while I do it?
Wow.
Yeah. That's, sweetheart, that's where we go. Is we got to make that little girl feel safe to talk. And not only that, to tell the truth.
Yes.
We got to make her feel safe to tell the truth. So you've got to, let's do a mystical pivot. It seems to be the theme of the night. You got to bring in the mystics. You got to bring in the mystical powers here. And you got to say to the universe, this prayer, we'll say it right now. I don't know. I don't even know how to make myself feel safe and own my voice. Show me. I have no fucking idea. Show me. That prayer's on the way. The prayer's on the way right now. You're gonna come back on, leave a comment sometime on my website and tell me, you know what? Guess what happened after we said that prayer? I was shown 5 steps the next day.
I've got the chills.
You and me both, baby. Seriously. So this is where we're such a mentalized culture, and the way you approach this whole thing makes complete sense in context to what we're taught. But when you do intuitive work and you go in and you see the lay of the land and what your system does beyond the mental bullshit,
right?
This is what it's doing. It's actually trying to protect you. So one part of you is genuinely like, I got to use my voice. And another part is going, no, you don't. You'll die. What the fuck are you thinking? And then now what's your immune system doing? It's doing the same thing to you that you're doing on that archetypal level of the subconscious mind and all this territory. Let's leave you with that. That's a lot.
No, I'm sweating now.
So much.
Thank you so much.
No, sweetheart. I just lots of love to you. Love that little girl. Get her to safety. Get her. Start with micro moves, man. I mean, don't force your system. Like I always say this, it's like yoga. You don't force yourself to do Hanumanasana, which is the splits. With the first yoga class, you got to take a lot of classes and let the muscles stretch out over time if you even ever get there. You know, and then let your body tell you what the limits are. Let this little freaked out girl tell you, hey, that's too much for me. Okay, cool. We'll ease off. Tomorrow we'll try a little more. We'll try to say 3 sentences of truth. And then guess what? You're okay still. You said 3 sentences of truth. You're okay now. Now let's say a whole paragraph. And tomorrow, in a month, we're going to tell a whole story of truth. And guess what? You're still okay. Now we're going to write a book of truth. That's how we go.
Yes.
Step by step, micro steps. And before you know it, your system's realigning. Their feng shui is realigning. And my prayer for you is your immune system follows suit. I really hope so.
Thank you.
I'm not a doctor, and of course, no guarantee. That's not my field, but I do know this territory.
Yes.
And so start here and see what can happen. And you know what? Who knows? You just might heal.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks for coming back. Well worth the wait. I'm so glad you came back on. Have a great holiday.
You too.
Love yourself no matter what. That's what I'm saying. All right. Bye. All right, everybody. I love your questions. I got to go once again. It's been great. So many great questions. I might do a part 2 to this and just answer more questions, honestly. I'm going to keep these questions here if I do a part 2 to this show, because I think there's so much more we could riff around with. We'll do it in the new year. But I just want to honor all of you. I mean, 44 questions got asked. I think I got through 4 of them. Thank you for tonight. I hope to see you in my workshop, The Art of Shadow Dancing with Archetypes, on mace.com. You can find that on my website. I sent the link. I'll put the link back up again. And I hope you join me next week, 3 nights in a row. If you can't make it live, no worries. You can watch it on demand, and you'll have lifetime access to the whole course. And of course, those of you taking my courses, I do a PDF and audio download version as well. Of course, I will do the same thing for this one. So namaste, lots of love. Comments on Facebook, comments on Crowdcast, comments on YouTube. And going forward, one thing I just want to mention is that right now we're just letting you watch on demand on Crowdcast. Coming in the new year, actually late December, you'll have to come to my website to watch the on-demand versions of these videos. They're still free. You just got to come to ohotto.com to see them. So for now, you can access them through the same link you got the live show through. All right. I love you guys. Thanks so much for showing up, for yourself and for me and for everybody else. Thanks to all the people that were courageous enough to come on camera and do this show with me. I'll see you in a few weeks. Stay tuned on my website, and maybe I'll see you next week on mace.com. Mwah. Namaste.
Inside.